Thank you, Zoom, for the message. So we'll post this on the event page later today and just share it out with all of you in attendance so that you can rewatch if there's anything that you want to listen to again. A few thank yous before we get going. Our event sponsors, Business Health Trust and Reach King County. And then our small business champions. So that's Amazon, the Boeing Company, Kaiser Permanente, Microsoft, Primera, and Symetra. Thanks to them for all their work or their support of our work for small businesses. So let's get going. Our first two speakers are Brooke Chapman and Joanna Nabholz from Brunswick Street, which is a small woman-owned business focused on recruiting and consulting. They've recently worked with many small and mid-sized companies that are struggling to compete with larger businesses in the age of COVID and remote work. So they'll share some ways that you can stand out during recruiting and some benefit options and other ideas that can be really impactful for keeping your current employees happy and healthy. So I will turn it over to the two of you.
All right. Share screen. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. Like we said, my name is Brooke Chapman, and my colleague today is going to be Joanna Nabholz. We're here from Brunswick Street to talk a little bit about the Great Resignation and how your organization can increase employee retention and avoid this unwanted attrition. So just a little recap for the first time at Brunswick Street. We're a local woman-owned staffing agency. We focus on accounting, finance, and business operations. And really over the last year, we've met with hundreds of the candidates throughout the pandemic and have seen what's causing individuals really to seek new roles. And so we're here to help explain some of the things that your organization can do to help stymie this attrition and retain your talent.
All right, great. So it's no secret, right? We're in this era where we just could not have predicted any of this in advance, or if you can, I'm going to bring you to a casino. So let's discuss that the situation that this pandemic has had on small and medium-sized businesses who just don't have the ability to compete with larger companies when it comes to salary. Let's talk about how did we get here to this point? Where exactly is here? And also, what are some retention strategies? And how do we handle attrition? All right, so let's talk about the why. Of course, you know, dubbed the Great Resignation, this exodus of workers has created hiring and retention challenges for companies. You've seen these headlines, right? If not exactly these, something similar. The last several months, we've seen this tidal wave of resignations, not just in the US, but around the world. So whatever the cause, the rush of resignations is really accelerating. So just some stats, 4.3 million people, which is almost 3% of the nation's workforce, they quit in August, according to the Labor Department data that was recently released. So you are here to think about with us, how can you as employers retain people in the face of this tidal wave of resignations? So addressing the root causes of these staggering statistics starts with better understanding them. So to explore exactly who has been driving this recent shift, it's important to understand how did we get here in the first place? All right, so how did we get here? All right, this has affected many of us. The additional burdens of childcare duties and virtual schooling. I certainly was affected when all of a sudden I was a teacher for my kids. I don't know how you guys have been, but I'm sure many of you have been in that position as well. Many companies maintained the requirement of being in person even during the pandemic. So this is all, how did we get here? Enhanced unemployment benefits, which made it appealing for a lot of people to utilize. And the notions that a lot of the feedback goes unheard, and we're going to address that a little bit later in the presentation. Some more of how we got here. Oops. Uncertainties. So all of them in general, and we know that there's really so many. Complete burnout. This one doesn't really need further explanation. Total fear. Brooke is going to talk about the effects on mental health in a bit. And most commonly, life epiphanies. How many stories have you heard where people's side hustle became their full-time job? Or other stories where people suddenly decided they didn't want to do X, Y, and Z anymore? And I literally met an ER surgeon from Swedish Hospital just here in Seattle about 3 weeks ago. He quit working in the ER to do hair transplants. This was a product of work-life balance and less stress. And so he found something that could get him there. So these kind of bold moves just didn't happen as frequently before the pandemic. All right, so what and who is driving attrition? What is the profile of those resigning? So the Harvard Business Review had an article just this past September talking about the Great Resignation. And interestingly enough, resignation rates are highest among mid-career employees. So between 30 and 45 years old, that's the greatest increase in resignation rates. And that's an average increase of more than 20% in the last year. And so while turnover is typically highest among this age group, one study found that over the last year, resignations actually decreased for workers in the 20 to 25 age range. And this is most likely due to a combination of greater financial uncertainty and reduced demand for entry-level workers. Okie dokie. Ooh, sorry about that. It's hard to multitask on Zoom. All right, so now that we've established where we're at, let's talk about some strategies that employers can use to retain the talent. And so, of course, we recognize that not every strategy will work for every organization, but here are a few things that we recommend based on what we've heard. So first, ensure that your company vision is known to all. So honestly, take a minute and think about whether or not you've clearly stated and communicated the vision for your organization. Do you believe all your employees really know what the vision is for your company? Is it engaging and inspiring? And does it drive key decisions that you and your team make daily? Peter Senge from the fifth discipline stated, one of the deepest desires underlying shared vision is the desire to be connected to a larger purpose and one another. And isn't that so true, especially now? Aren't we all really just looking to be associated or connected with a commonality or shared interest or vision? And that's why this concept is so important. So I've asked this question to CEOs and their teams for years and found that often we get so busy and wrapped up in our goals and tasks that we forget the vision and purpose for our company. So yes, your employees need to know what's expected of them, but they also need to understand what the vision is, where they're going, and why, which is the purpose and mission. We want to go there. So 41% of employees feel personally aligned with their company's mission and 49% with their values. If you have questions like where did we get these stats, definitely ask me, I can supply that. Yet 94% of employees and 98% of employers say those connections are critical. So why the disconnect? Every organization is unique and there's no one size fits all of why the mission isn't being communicated, but here are some general tips that can help you better communicate buy-in. Okay, so according to business experts, an emphasis on communication equips employees to feel valued, satisfied, motivated, which of course then enhances their morale and increases their output. So first, you want to combine information and inspiration. So you want to empower your staff to both absorb and actualize the message that you're communicating through a combination of important information and creative insights. So think about how can you make it a goal to show team members that they are the important assets to the growth, success, and profitability of each undertaking. So just an example, maybe you can combine project launches with a rundown of the most recent successful one, which is will pump everybody up as they brainstorm how to make the next one even bigger. I know we know about body language, but just a reminder, even over Zoom, to think about your body language with your team members. And, it's a huge factor of the equation. Consider delivery, not even your, nonverbal cues like tone, stance, gestures, eye contact as best as you can do virtually, or if you are in person, facial expressions, they can affect how the employees receive and interpret your message. So obviously a huge percentage of the message is delivered through these nonverbal cues. You might find it helpful to balance your speaking and listening. Again, nothing we don't know already. These are reminders, but try to address each conversation as this mutual exchange of ideas rather than you just telling. You want to grant the participants of the conversation the space and freedom to articulate their thoughts without interruption. And then obviously dialogue requires two people. So try to resist the urge to monopolize the discussion or strategize your response while the other person's talking. All right. Also, you can offer brainstorm sessions, maybe invite all the staff members in your department to attend meetings designed for them to share their ideas in a constructive environment. You can do it all together or break this up by department. Another idea is send out reminders, emails, or announcements in a newsletter that highlight good news so that it's being communicated. And there always seems to be that person in every company that is creative and that they want that job to create a newsletter. So if they have that inclination, maybe consider giving them that job to create the newsletter in which you can communicate anything you want. So just some ideas.
Great. Well, Joanna, now that you've highlighted the importance of communicating some vision and mission statements with employees, I also think that along that vein, it's also so important for us to address mental health when communicating with our employees. Everyone, regardless of salary or socioeconomic status, has lived through just this once in a lifetime experience, and honestly, it's changed everyone. So you really can't expect employees to be just business as usual once everyone's vaccinated and we return to, what used to be these normal activities. There are going to be some really long lasting effects, and some of those we might not actually even start to feel until long after the pandemic or the height of the pandemic has subsided. And so really giving employees a little bit of extra patience and making mental health a conversation that it's okay to have is going to be super important. Many insurance plans now cover either virtual or in-person visits to therapists and counselors. So making your employees aware of just the resources that they have available to them in order to take care of themselves as a whole person really will help make them feel valued and make sure that they know that the employer cares about them. Now, in a recent article from The Atlantic by Ellen Cushing titled "Late Stage Pandemic is Messing with Your Brain," she's walking around with some kind of mild cognitive impairment. And according to Mike Yasa, a neuroscientist at UC Irvine, based on everything we know about the brain, two of the things that are really good for it are physical activity in any form and mobility. And then a thing that's really bad for it is chronic stress and continual stress. So living through a pandemic, even for those of us doing so in relative comfort, is exposing people to microdoses of unpredictable stress at all time. And research has really shown that stress changes brain regions that control executive function, learning, and memory. So when we talk about giving employees a little extra patience, here's some stats to back it up as to why. Now, along with mental health and communicating with employees, I really do think it's important to just kind of note that retention kind of starts from day one, both for new employees and for those existing on the team. So every new hire really should be set up for success from the start. So your onboarding process is super important, and it should teach new employees not only about the job, but also about the company culture and how they can contribute and thrive in it. And then the training and support that you provide from day one, whether it's virtually provided or in person, can really set the tone for the employees to hire tenure with your organization. So building a program that drives a positive impact, we totally understand can be challenging. So we wanted to go through some tips that hopefully can help. Now, the first step for a positive onboarding process is to make sure that you're acutely aware of what that process is. So the first tip is just to skip spending an entire first day really going over and filling out paperwork or reading a training manual, and to let your new hire spend some time with the team that they're working with. So it's not just about the new person joining the team, right? We're talking about retention here. It's also about making sure that existing employees can get some time to meet their new team members as well. And then get to know you can be a great way for kind of that mutual conversation to occur. Picking something even that's online or can be done virtually that encourages social interaction can be really helpful and fun. Because at the end of the day, building camaraderie is hard when you're not in the office every day together. But doing something like this can really help to speed up the acclimation process. Again, not just for the new hire, but for people on the team already. And I know in this new environment, it can be challenging to keep, those traditions, those company traditions that we had alive. But, if there are ways for them to be taken virtual, I think that's a really good option. For example, Brunswick Street, we always did a first day lunch. So just do a virtual, have Grubhub deliver to everyone based on, geography, or maybe it's Postmates, whatever. Or if there's an opportunity maybe to send them a swag box before their first day, so that way they can really get connected to everyone. It's just so vital for them to feel like they're part of a team.
All right, so although getting your new hires started on the right foot is a great step in making a positive employee experience, we really can't overlook continued training and development for new and existing team members. So just like each employee brings a different skill set to the overall organization, each employee will want to grow and evolve their position uniquely. So to best support your team, it's necessary to assess where are they currently and where do they see themselves in 1, 3, or 5 years. So ask them open-ended questions in a one-on-one setting, such as what are areas of growth that you see for yourself, or describe what you want the next phase of your career to look like. And that can allow you to find small ways to help them build up their long-term goals. So even if there's no room for immediate growth, I know we're all in a recession, giving somebody who wants to eventually be a manager, for example, in the next 3 years, if you give them that opportunity to maybe mentor or train a new hire, this can allow them to develop a new skill and keep them engaged so that when that right opportunity does come, then they're more prepared to take it. And one thing I do want to note is that training really does come from the top. So just as we should be encouraging our employees to grow as leaders, we should also be encouraging the company culture to evolve as well. One thing I really like about Brunswick Street is my manager attends training seminars regarding communication or DEI initiatives. She always comes back and facilitates a conversation that engages all the team members and encourages them to use these new skills as a part of their day-to-day role at Brunswick Street. All right, we said we were going to talk about feedback a little bit. This is another way to increase retention. You really want to make sure that employees feel their feedback is being heard. And so many employees, including executives, feel that too often what they have to say it always goes unheard, and does not result in any meaningful change. So 78% say that they're eager to take company surveys. I mean, that's like almost all of them, right? But only 50% say that they've actually received surveys from the employer in the past year. So it's really critical that we take the time to solicit feedback from our employees using open-ended questions. And this can be done through employee engagement surveys that either you create or you have a professional company like Nabholz create. By the way, Nabholz is headquartered in Seattle, so you'd be supporting your local business. So when you give these surveys, it can be done in team meetings or on one-on-ones, and try not to do it just one time. Have it done regularly because things are always changing and they want to get their opinions out. So it's really important that you communicate how you sincerely want to learn what it is they have to say. And gathering the feedback is one thing, but you have to analyze the results and then share the results with everybody. So that's a step that often businesses miss, is the actual sharing of the feedback. So a little bit more on feedback loops and positive recognition. So consider giving an employee a phone call, just, hi, how are you doing? I know you're at home, you've got 97 kids, check in with them. It really means a lot. My manager does that also, just how's it going? Reward them, and reward doesn't have to be financial. So you can recommend your staff for external or internal accolades like Employee of the Month. You can encourage peer nominations. You can feature outstanding team members in the company newsletter that you got that one person to write. Give the gift of time. I think that's really critical now. You can encourage team members to log off early on a Friday if they've been working super long hours, or offer additional time off or extra vacation days for a job well done, whatever you can do. Develop new leaders. Recognize employees' skills by asking them to mentor others, and promote from within when possible, and make sure staff members know about career and growth opportunities in the company. Constantly remind them so they have a goal. What are they working towards? And for those who are interested, introduce them to management. Invite company executives to join a team meeting or a conference call, and arrange for team members to present the results of a project to that team. So for those who are interested in that. All right, don't forget to celebrate important milestones. It could be a virtual celebration. You could send festive treats to people, put things in writing. Acknowledgement comes in many ways. So acknowledging employees' great work in an email or a personalized certificate that they can hang up. You can copy key executives on that email or team members for additional exposure. You can host video check-in meetings. You can schedule regular video conferences to encourage face-to-face communication, really foster those connections. Highlighting successes formally. So cite very specific accomplishments during performance reviews to show how much you really value your employees' work. And this also reinforces the type of work that you want to see in the future. And then encourage professional development. If you can, offer tuition assistance for professional courses or certifications. And similarly, if you can, reimburse staff for industry association memberships, conferences, or maybe a publication, New York Times, anything like that. It does not have to be expensive.
Now, when we talk about retention, of course, we want to talk about employee buy-in and creating synergy within the organization. So in order to do that, I think it's really important to understand organizational culture and what that means to your company. And so here are some things that companies don't often talk about, but I think are super important when we look at culture. So looking at mentorship within your organization, assigning a mentor for employees from day one, and then having that grow within the company to, even your mid-career employees, right, being mentored by senior executives and so on, is so important because it'll get, new hires connected to the company from day one. It'll keep current employees engaged in positions from, day to day. And having a plan as to what that mentorship will look like, both for the mentor and the mentee, and then management, will really help to create a solid expectation of what everyone should expect within the next 3, 6, and 9 months. So that way we really do have that synergy. Everyone keeps growing on their path, and we create that camaraderie overall. Another facet of culture that we want to talk about is DEI. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. The first week is a great opportunity for organizations to explain the why behind DEI and what it means to your company. So employers really nowadays, they have to actively work to create meaningful change in spite of a history of injustice. And so, that should start from day one, asking new hires because DEI looks different from company to company and country to country. So asking new employees what that's like, and asking your current employees for your DEI brand is imperative to keep everyone engaged and recognized. And then finally, technology. Technology, we haven't seen already, can help to bring your culture out across the screen. So videos and visual SOPs or standard operating procedures can be adopted regardless of whether or not you're going fully remote or more of a hybrid. And having employees help to create videos, right? Those existing employees help create videos is not only a great way to help them retrain or, help them expand their skill sets, but those videos that you're creating can be a lot more engaging than simply reading a handbook, and can help someone who's maybe new to the organization to feel a better sense of connection. So now we want to talk a little bit about work-life balance, because that is just one of the main drivers that we've seen that people state as they're looking to leave their current organization. So work-life balance really is finding ways to help your employees a better chance of, having a life outside of the office in essence. So Adam Grant, a professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, said that reducing work hours allows individuals to focus their attention more effectively, producing the same amount of work in less time, often with higher quality and creativity. Now, while employees already are experiencing brain fatigue, working what was once considered kind of regular operating hours is actually now contributing to employee burnout. So if there is a way to find reduced work hours that employees are spending online or coming into the office, it can really help them achieve a better sense of work-life balance and aid in their mental health. And then you'll have a better chance of retaining that talent. Now, furthermore, technology, according to the World Bank, is changing how people work and the terms under which they work. With technology allowing for remote work to be done more efficiently, nearly 70% of respondents to a recent study said that they wish they could work more remotely more often than they do. And you may find that once they go more virtual, they may actually be able to get more done in less time, again, increasing that work-life balance. Now, for some organizations that are open to trying something that's even a little more progressive, another option that you may want to consider is implementing a 4-day work week. So the Association of Sustainable Democracy and Autonomy conducted its research from 2015 through 2019, and in 2 large-scale trials, they monitored about 2,500 workers. Now, researchers noted that in a 4-day work week, workers significantly transitioned from a place of stress and burnout to a healthier work-life balance, according to that study. Now, most organizations don't operate in a silo, and for some, I totally understand a 4-day work week may not be feasible due to the interconnected nature of our business. So in that case, we would recommend evaluating your current PTO policy to allow employees more time away from the office, necessarily like making it a regular occurrence. And PTO is something that we'll discuss a little bit later on, but for now, we'll just take a moment and walk through some additional offerings.
Okay, so many companies are offering self-paced course options like LinkedIn Learning. Somebody can choose from thousands of courses on literally any topic. So your employees will really appreciate that experience to explore their interests. Obviously, Google, very innovative company, they are encouraging 20% of a person's time, an employee's time, to be dedicated to something other than work, something that's of interest to them. It's totally true. It's a very cool concept. So that's one idea. I don't know if you've heard the buzz about gamification, but consider gamifying meetings or trainings and learnings. So adding a game element can make the meetings or trainings fun. So for instance, maybe a quiz that, comes at the end of the meeting with or without a prize. Sometimes just winning can be motivator enough for many.
Cool. So having identified the importance of highlighting and embedding culture onto the team, I think it really is important to also identify some low-cost perks that employers can offer their team that not only set them apart from other organizations, but can also be used to show that your organization is really willing to put into action activities that speak to the organization's culture. So for some organizations, offering stress management programs or paying for employees to download an app like Calm can be a low-cost benefit that helps show an employer's dedication to mental health. Paying for a gym membership or reimbursing some percentage of a yoga class, a Pilates class, or just really any fitness class can emphasize a company's desire to value employee health. right? Providing healthy snack options that take into account maybe dietary restrictions can be an effective way to provide an alternative to the midday. And then finally, some employees may have added anxiety around their finances. So bringing someone who can sit down one-on-one with them could be a great benefit that you can provide with little to no cost and emphasize a company's desire to provide long-term stability.
All right. All right. Sorry, I just wanted to keep unmuting, muting. So who loves this picture? Really wanted to show this to you. So this is about flexibility in the workplace. And that obviously covers a lot of ground, from working from home to the freedom that the gig economy allows. So having worked from home for the last 2+ years, employees have essentially eliminated any sort of commute as part of commute time as part of their day-to-day routine. And so many people reported having an extra 1 to 4 hours a week at home, and that's really helped them find a better sense of that work-life balance. And so when evaluating their current role or future roles, many are placing the work-life balance way ahead of monetary incentives when deciding whether or not to quit current job, move on to something else. So as employers, it's really important to recognize that to retain talent, you really need to find creative ways to allow employees a greater sense of work-life balance, and that's just essential right now. So we actually had a small business that we worked with, and they were countered with a $10,000 compensation increase from a new company. And they countered it with the ability for this employee to work remotely for 3 months as she visited family in South Asia. So that's how they retained her. So really that way the company was able to retain that talent without any additional cost to them, just by providing the flexibility that that employee needed. So you may not be able to give 3 months to your employee in South Asia, but the point is that offering flexibility may be a lot more valuable than money.
Great. So in addition, right, to flexibility, time is so important. So I totally understand, right? Not all employers can reorganize work in such a way that, 40 work week or, 6-hour days is feasible for them. But some of us may be able to accommodate higher rates of local. So as employees are looking at compensation as more than just a base salary now, but really as a holistic package that includes insurance coverage, retirement plans, and PTO, we've actually seen candidates recently reject positions with greater compensation based on a lack of PTO. So kind of gone are these days of like 2 weeks a year being standard, as companies now are starting to offer all staff members, regardless of tenure, 3 weeks a year, or even have these unlimited PTO plans. So as employees are looking at calendars that are becoming packed with 2 years of way late social events, really take a moment to evaluate if your organization has the ability to offer a more robust level of inevitability in the fact that eventually a team member will leave. And so we just wanted to take a moment to kind of address how to prepare for attrition after the pandemic. So if a long-term employee leaves the organization just because they need a change, right? Let's assume you did everything right, they just need a change. We want to talk about, is your organization ready? So we saw attrition pick up at the end of the last recession as things kind of began to stabilize and the risk of taking on a new role was lower. So with us all living through an unprecedented year, many employees may be ready for something new, even if they would have never considered leaving in the past. So taking control and doing something now may help you be more prepared down the road. So with an already tight hiring market and a lack of a robust temp pool, positions may take longer to fill than you have experienced previously. So there is a vicious cycle that kind of keeps moving as your current employees leave, and then employees have to take on extra work that's resulting in their burnout, and then they begin to look for a new role. So we want to kind of see how can we maybe cut this cycle. So how can we prepare? Many processes have changed quickly as we've moved to a more remote landscape. So taking note of what has changed and make sure that people's positions are clearly documented and the SOPs are kind of well understood can really help in that process. And then evaluating whether or not you have a cross-training program in place, or if people leave, are you prepared for someone else to kind of pick up their work? It's going to be really important. Many companies, I will note, have had to run extra lean through the pandemic, which adds additional stress when then someone leaves the team. So if your team's been cross-trained, so that way someone's ready. And that being said, it's important to just note generally who on the team even has bandwidth, right? If we're already running lean, to take on additional responsibilities. And then finally, I just want everyone to do a quick evaluation and see, does your budget account for attrition? Or should you have to pay recruitment fees or temp consulting fees? Would it be better as we look at budgets for 2022 to build that in now and not use it as opposed to being left without it? Should a process or should a hiring process take longer than we initially expected? So now, as we mentioned before, it's so important that you know your team and take regular temperature checks to see who may be considering moving on. If you have an open and honest dialogue with your employees and kind of embrace and support knowing if someone is interviewing, you may find out in advance that they're looking to leave, and you can gain time on the hiring process by starting before their notice period has officially began. Now, many roles look different post-COVID, so taking time to create not only updated SOPs, but then also updated job descriptions can also help save you a lot of time on the back end. Job descriptions that are outdated, right, and are not reflective of positions can add either days or weeks to hiring processes, depending on who needs to sign off on those changes. And if you don't update them, then an old job description can just lead to a bad hire, as that position no longer reflects the description. So should someone give notice, we also want to think about getting someone new in the seat. So having had, this tight hiring market for the last year and a half, positions are taking longer to fill than expected. So should your organization need to use an external agency? Are there pre-approved vendors that you can work with? Or is there a clear onboarding process for contractors that can be expected? And I just want to point out, it's not only contractors. As the market gets tighter, employers will no longer be able to take weeks or even months to make a decision. If you can only onboard a new hire 2 days of the month, and they need to be identified 2 weeks prior to that for HR to hit a deadline and get training in place, you're kind of going to be in trouble. So review those processes now. Sit down with your HR teams and figure out what they need to be successful. It may mean in the long run that we need to add to the HR team before we add to some other teams. That way we have the bandwidth to take on new people quickly. And with so many changing variables to COVID regulations over the last year, internal HR teams really have been scrambling to keep up with compliance protocols and policies, all while facing the same burnout that everyone else has. So I always just like to throw in a quick note: be nice to your friends in HR. They really are doing their best.
Okay, last thing, we're seeing things turn around. Look, more headlines. October stats are coming out. It seems to be better news. So these are some of the headlines that you can see, better than the initial ones you saw. And just know that the economy is expected to have added 450,000 jobs in October, and hourly wages year over year are expected to rise 4.9%. The unemployment rate is expected to fall from 4.7 to 4.8%. And finally, people are starting to get antsy. Those people who decided they don't want to do anything, they're now starting to want to do something. So having a change of heart.
Great. Well, I know we mentioned a time for questions, so I just wanted to thank you all so much for being here today. And if you guys do have any questions, feel free to either pop them in the chat, or at the end we can go over those. And just once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanna and Brooke. Let's keep going here with the program. So we just heard a lot of ways that you can improve your employee experience kind of in the theoretical. And now we're joined by Richard Adler and Melissa Carter from Adler Gersh, which is a small law firm. And they're going to talk about ways that they've implemented some of these things. They have been recognized by Seattle Business Magazine and The Riveter as a top place to work in Seattle more than once. So definitely a great company culture over there. And they attribute it to mission, communication, and they're going to tell us how they've done it. I'll turn it over.
Thank you both for the invitation, and thank you to the prior speakers. I would invite everybody to turn their video link on without their picture. Would love to see the eyes and see who's looking. I could tell whether you're asleep, and if you're going to sleep, I might throw in a joke. If you're wide awake, then I know that we're hitting it. It's not distracting to me. I love talking to people, not screens, and so to the extent that you can help us, that would be great. Melissa and I have a very unique presentation, we think, because we're both going to present a slide, and then we're just going to riff on it, and we're just going to give you kind of top of mind things that come up. We're culture driven, we're client centric, we're boutique. And if any of you out there hear some things about what we're doing and you think, I belong in that organization, bring your resume. Come on down. We're right across from the Gates Foundation. Love to talk to you. Melissa, you're in charge of the slides, so I'm going to start with slide number 1. Oh, what happened there? You have to excuse me. I'm still part of the Flat Earth Society, so they keep me away from the IT stuff, okay? Let's do the next slide.
Give me just 1 second here.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh, dang, I was going to throw in a joke, but hey, there's my
Too quick.
There's one of my mentees, a very famous and highly regarded attorney by the name of Hamilton Gardner. And he's right there. Yeah, I use Hamilton once in a while for my own stuff. So there you go, Hamilton. This first slide is kind of unique because Seattle Business Magazine does a survey of small businesses, and they rate small, medium, large businesses almost on a yearly basis, but for COVID. And what's unique about it, it's an anonymous survey that takes about 45 minutes for one staff member to complete. And you don't get into the top 100 or the top 10 unless you have 100% feedback from everybody in your organization. So it's not just, owners of a business or key stakeholders responding to long questions about HR and personal development, professional development, but it's a really robust survey, one of the best ones I've ever seen. So I want you to imagine 2016. We're in the room. The first year we got number 8, and we're like, what's number 8 about? And we do it again. And we were called up to the stage as the best place to work in 2016. And it happened again in 2018 or 19. And for the last 6 years, we've been rated internally by our people, all 20, as a top 8 and 2 times the top 10. And what was real strange in this ballroom of thousands of people was all of the great things these companies were doing, which I classified as, I thought, less than honorable way of running a business. What people want are meaningful work with meaningful relationships. They don't want ping pong tables. They don't want billiards. They don't want popcorn on Friday. They may think they want that. You may lean in to do that, but really it comes down to the communication, the environment that they work in. Is it mission driven? How is communication dealt with? And we'll give you some of the things that we do, but we're not into snacks. We're not into ping pong tables. We're not into these little tchotchke things that you do that are trying to bribe or entice or keep people motivated to do their work. Oh, this is a great place to work because we have a refrigerator full of food and we could eat whatever we want. So what? How does that relate to the meaning of life? How does that relate to the meaning of your work? Where are you going in life? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to make a difference? How are you going to be an agent of change? You can be an agent of change playing ping pong. You're going to be an agent of change having an extra popcorn? I don't think so. I'm probably the senior person on this call, but I can't see everybody. You could tell by my gray and the lack of hair on the top that, that I've learned a few things over time. So we have two threads of thought that we want to go through: issues around real meaningful relationships and appreciation. And the other one is going to be things around mission. So Melissa, I think you're up.
Well, before I move on to the next slide, I did just want to share one more thing about our experience going to the Seattle Business Magazine Top 100 dinners while we were allowed pre-COVID to go, and then the virtual one last year. We have routinely been the only law firm in the room. Thousands of people in the room, small and large employers throughout Washington state, not a lawyer among them besides us. So lawyers are routinely given a bad reputation for not managing people well. They tend to be adversarial, confrontational, at least by reputation. That is not.
I disagree with that.
How dare you? That is not something that this law firm holds in high regard. We don't treat our people poorly, and we are not bullies. We treat everyone respectfully, even if it's opposing counsel on the other side. But when it comes to our employees, respecting them is mission critical. And so it was not only great to be in the top 10 routinely, and sometimes number one, but to be the only lawyers in the room was also a great source of pride for me personally.
And there you have Melissa Carter, who is the managing partner of the law firm. I used to be. I am now the founding principal. Changes. I think Sam Cooke had the right song back in the early 60s. Change is going to come. For those of you who don't know who Sam Cooke is, I strongly encourage you to look it up.
You're not going to sing us a line?
Well, I could, but you know, I might scare people away.
Probably. That would, yeah.
But I do want to say, just as you jump into it, you said something about managing. Here's one takeaway for you. If you're mission driven in what you do, lead people, manage things. Lead people, manage things in all that you do. I'll tell you what we do in a sec.
Yeah. So climate and culture, and really what this goes to is, what do employees want? And we did not lose any employees during the great exodus of COVID. We've retained everyone. And part of that is the climate and culture, and knowing that at the end of the day, employees want to be appreciated. They want to be acknowledged. So this slide really speaks to two ways that we appreciate and acknowledge our employees. Number one is kudos. We give kudos, the flowers, the praise when appropriate and often. But we also present challenges and opportunities, because we don't just hand out the flowers and the praise for nothing. It's well earned and well deserved. We set the bar really high, and we give each of our employees opportunities to really strive for greatness. We don't do the work for them, and we want to make sure that people are challenged.
Kind of dovetailing on that, we have long-term people. We have folks who work with us for 30 years, 28 years, 19 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5. The newbies are like 5 years. Kind of unheard of, but again, it goes to meaningful relationships and meaningful work. Part of that climate that we have, the kudos, is we have different awards where we take our mission statement and we break it down into the core values. And we've created these little awards. Like someone has a knowledge award, and it's a little glass apple. And every month it kind of gets moved around to who is demonstrating that value of knowledge and why, and we tell a story about it. Who's doing something around teamwork? Who's doing something around advocacy? These are little tchotchke things, but they carry such importance. It's not a gift certificate. It's not a spa certificate. It's not ping pong. It's real live relationships, talking about real live work and how they made a difference in reading another article that led to a better outcome in a case, how they did something in advocacy that turned things around, what they did in teamwork to make things better for somebody else. And that just kind of creates this climate where every month it's going to be awarded to somebody else and it moves around. A little thing we do, and it creates meaningful relationships, because you get people from one side of an office talking to somebody on a different side of the office. Maybe they don't work much together, but all of a sudden one's giving praise to the other about something they know about. And boy, that relationship now is connected in a way that it wasn't before because of that.
So communication is really key and something that we focus a lot on in feeding our culture within our law firm. Not only we're lawyers, we can talk. We're pretty okay at the communication thing when it comes to speaking to juries, judges, insurance folks. But when it comes to communication in interpersonal relationships, that's not something that's taught in law school. So we've gone outside of our traditional learning and done a lot of reading and studying in the area of leadership when it comes to deep and meaningful communication with your employees. We want to make sure that we seek first to understand before we are then understood. We listen to what our people are telling us, and we make sure that they know they're heard, in that we take that feedback that we want from them so badly, and we actually put it into action. As an organization, we read many books together to have a common language to ensure that we are being understood and meeting at the same place and showing respect and appreciation whenever someone does have something to offer.
And that goes, I think, to, it's one thing to sit down with somebody and say, we're going to do a performance evaluation. But is it standardized in the firm? Is it part of the culture that you do evaluations? In our office, a new hire we talk to them in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, and 1 year, and thereafter every year. And at each of those meetings, the first couple are just a check-in, like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? What's working for you? What do you need to make it work a little bit better? What can we remove from you? What do we need to clarify? All the while trying to build a relationship and build the focus around kind of a client-centered practice. And you mean it when you have those kind of conversations, because you're taking time to sit with people and say, we want you to be abundantly successful. If you're abundantly successful, we're abundantly successful. If we're abundantly successful, the clients are going to be abundantly successful. And having those discussions then have to get filtered into, okay, what else do we need to do? Who's going to do it? When are they going to get it done? And then you have written memos anytime there's a meeting of any sort. And then you always look at that last memo and follow up and say, hey, did we get this done? Oop, it fell through the cracks. Things do fall through the cracks. But I think anybody would appreciate the follow through, the commitment to do things, honor what you're saying, walk the talk, talk the walk. Really is important in that communication. I love this slide, by the way. I thought it should be like, maybe I could put it right where that one is and take that one down. It's a pretty cool one. Yeah. This is an art piece from one of my clients who was a Microsoft high-level person who had a brain injury and was not really an artist, but following the brain injuries, she lost some things in brain matter, but she picked up this creative sense that she never had before. So I'm really proud of my little art back there. I didn't do it, so my client.
It's a beautiful piece. One other aspect about our high-level communication is we have empowered all of the employees to actually grade and rate each of the partners who are owners in the law firm. So there are 5 partners in the law firm, and every year we ask the entire staff, regardless of position, regardless of tenure with the firm, to fill out a 360 evaluation of each partner. And we listen to that feedback and actually implement changes. So I think it's pretty rare to have an organization where the top level is graded and rated by full staff, but that is something that we take very seriously.
Amen. I'm ready for the next one.
There we go. Richard, you take this one.
Oh, I love this one. Isn't it kind of counterintuitive when you're on an airplane and they say, hey, if shit happens and the masks are coming down, put it on you before you put it on your kid. And if anyone here has kids, you know, like, wait a minute, I'd take a bullet for my kid. I would put the mask on my child first rather than me. But this is one of where we try to, through what we say and what we do, make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because you can't take care of other people. You can't work at a higher service level unless you're taking care of yourself. And giving people permission around that, whatever that might be, not paying for them to go to the club, but encouraging them of all the benefits of going to the health club to do that. Paying for somebody their admission into a healthcare facility, I think is counterproductive because there's no skin in the game for that person to follow through. Is that why people sign up for health clubs on January 1st? And by January or by March 1st, there's like a 50% drop in that because there's no accountability to themselves or others. They're just doing it because of a thing to do. There's a concept out of Stephen Covey's work of 7 habits of highly effective people. It's the last habit. And that last habit talks about sharpening the saw. What is it that you do to yourself, do for yourself on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level? What is it that you do for yourself? And stay current with that, stay with it, have some accountability around that. We have a policy in the Office of PTO, pretty good policy. We have more than 3 weeks when you put all the stuff together. But we have a policy in the office that says you use it or you're going to lose it. Not that you could save it up and develop it and have this like 12-week plan and now I'm going to quit. I'm going to take my last 3 months and go somewhere else. No, because you work hard, you have meaningful relationships, you have meaningful work. It takes time, it takes energy, it's stressful. We need you to take your time off. And the law got changed on us on our philosophy, where now you're allowed to kind of carry over some of your PTO into that. And so we honor that. But we do think encouraging people to get their PTO, scheduling it in is a great way to do that.
And it is definitely a mindset within the firm that we don't expect people to be heroes and not take PTO. And in every single person's performance appraisal during their review, we look at, okay, are you using your PTO? Are you sharpening the saw? Are you taking care of your physical and mental health? That's important. That's much more important than not taking vacation days. We don't encourage that. So this is kind of on the same thought stream, which is sort of redefining and reframing stress. We have very hard jobs. We're in a pandemic. It's a very stressful time for everyone. And really just kind of reframing and looking at the positives of we work very hard and there's a reason for that. And so we do take breaks together. We celebrate the wins together. And we don't live in a fantasy world. We acknowledge that things are very stressful, and we take care of each other.
And this proverb, there's a lot of proverbs like that. We all have trials and tribulations in our work, in our life, in our home, and family. And so when you're working with somebody and you have a meaningful relationship, you want to pick them up. You know, is it snarky to say, hey, that which doesn't kill you will make you stronger? Maybe that's not the right thing at the moment. Or it's something like, I read this book and there was a really interesting expression that came out of it, which is smooth waters does not make for an experienced captain. So in other words, you're reframing that experience, that adversarial approach that they may be dealing with a particular issue, into the fact that this is going to create a bigger and deeper knowledge base for them as they go forward. And then it's an opportunity to say, what's going on? Let's talk about it a little bit more. 1 or 2 minutes, 5 minutes, it means a lot. I think the prior speakers endorsed the idea that people want to have relationships. I think our folks don't want to work at home. They're like isolated. They're like tired of being alone. And an interactive, engaged culture it feeds itself, and it gives you the ability to withstand COVID-19. We're unique in the office that early on we said, hey, when we get vaccinations, everyone's going to get vaccinated. Anyone got a problem? Everybody, no, I want to be first in line to get the vaccine. There was none of this political discussion around it's good or it's bad, or it's going to have titanium chips in my body, or Bill Gates is going to control my mind, or like wackadoodle stuff. Sorry. If any wackadoodles are on there, tough. That's my thoughts. I love you though. And speaking of, sorry, Melissa, jumping in, but
Go ahead.
you know, you're only good as the people around you. And that's true at the partnership level. Here's the 5. It's also true of the other 15. We could show you a lot of other photos of how we do life together inside the office and outside the office. But Melissa and I could not possibly be here listening to a prior speaker and now us pontificating unless our partners are taking care of things back at the base. So you're only good as the people around you. You got to invest in time, and you got to make sure that you're doing meaningful work, whatever that might be. And Melissa, you always have a great anecdote about the custodian at school. That's
Yeah.
a good one to throw it in. Kind of mission driven, because that's coming.
Right. And it definitely ties into finding the right people for your organization. You want people who are like-minded and who look at work as a calling, not as a job. It's hard work. It's not like I skip to work every day and sing to myself and eat lollipops, but it's a calling, and it's higher level, higher purpose. And we look for the same type of people that share that. And one story that sticks with me that I read once was there are 2 men that work for an elementary school, and they have the same job. Their job is to clean up the school. One of them says that he's a janitor. And the other one says, I contribute to a healthy and safe learning environment for tomorrow's leaders. They do the exact same thing. It's 100% mindset. If you love what you're doing, it's not work. And so that's what we look for when we find people to join our team, and probably why they stay as long as they do. And so that really is what this slide is about, is just kind of finding that right mindset and people who are like-minded and support the same vision and values and are inspired by the same things that we are. Richard, take it away.
There we go. You could tell I love these little quotes. They're just wonderful, I think, in terms of reframing your own mind. So we're going to kind of shift in from into another topic area around mission statement and goals and living that. I think one of the first slides of the prior speakers were how important it was to have that. And for me, it's, if you don't know where you're going, if the people you work with don't know where you're going, if the people you work with, you don't know where they're going, then any road's going to take you there. But if you have a discussion on where you want to go, where do they want to go, and you're on the same road, it's synergistic, it's powerful. But if you don't have that discussion, if you may have a mission statement, but you know what, if you're a new business owner, Hamilton, I'd invite you and I challenge you to ask your people, what's our mission statement? Okay, now evaluate us. How well does Hamilton Gardner do with this mission? Not just how I do, but tell me where I fall down. Because it's only when you get that kind of honest feedback without, with immunity to the person giving you that feedback, then you could grow and then you could change. And when you do that, they're going to go, whoa, he's serious about this. He's changing his behavior based upon my comment, my feedback. It's powerful stuff. So I would encourage you all to think about mission. Everybody's got mission, but do you do the mission? Are you talking about mission? Does it cascade into everything that you do? Figure it out. Every business is a little bit different.
And take it one step further. Ask your staff what the mission statement is and have it visible.
Everywhere. I remember reading the book back in when dinosaurs roamed the planet, when I started practicing. And the tip there was give $5 to the person when you walk up to them, you say, what's the mission statement? And they get it, $5. That would probably translate into today's dollars like 100, because back in the dinosaurs, it was only 5. But, you know,
Maybe
it's an
a
interest,
Starbucks card.
or even a Starbucks card would be business. But I never quite did that because I thought it was kind of cheesy. But I always did routinely ask around mission, and when they got it right, it was like, wow. Then we did something around that.
And that's what this slide is really about too, is finding the right people who give a damn, who are inspired by the same things that move your organization forward, who truly care about the work that you're doing. You find those people and it's amazing how much farther you'll go.
Yeah, you're not looking for everybody, unless you're a big corporation where you just need to have cogs in the wheel and you got to fill positions, and those people are going to come and go. But if you're looking for in a small business, you know, one person in our business is 5% of the total staff. That's a serious thing. 2 people are 10%. So you got to go the extra mile. You yourself have to demonstrate going the extra mile for your client. That's what we do. And that kind of cascades through the rest of the organization.
And I think I referenced this a little bit earlier, but as an organization, we do quite a bit of group reading that goes well outside of the rules of evidence and well outside of the rules of professional conduct, which we do plenty of as well. But this is reading as it pertains to communication and working in a mission-driven environment. And a lot of the reads that we do, they're so good that we ask everyone in the staff to read it. And then we take retreats and we actually run workshops just on the messages within the book to elevate our communication and use a safe language that everyone speaks. So everyone understands when we use a phrase from one of our common readings, oh, that's what this is about.
It adds to the culture, because now you have a level of communicating. So taking a page out of Stephen Covey again, where he talks about time management and effective use of time. There's quadrants. There's a urgent and important, and then there's things that are urgent but not important, and things that are important not. I mean, and that comes down to Q1, Q2, Q3. So somebody can knock on my door and say, "Hey, Richard, I got a Q1 thing." It's like, "Oh man, house is on fire. We got to deal with that." It's just a way in which to communicate real quickly, effectively, efficiently, where everybody gets what's being taught. It's almost like people are grokking what's happening. They have a sixth sense of what's going on. And here's an example of how you can help your organization and help yourself. So let's say you're not the business owner. Let's say you're upper level manager, mid-level manager, lower level manager, but you have purpose in life. I would encourage you to listen to audio, to get a book, to read it. And if you think this applies to your work environment or to your team, encourage one other person in that team to read the same book with you and give you feedback. And if you get kind of a double hit from you and this other person, you know, this is a good one. Maybe we should bring this up a level and maybe it becomes part of the culture. That's a really cool thing. So what we have done, we have people in the office that read and they come forward with a book, and we have a process. And they may then say to someone in their team, "Hey, would you read this? Oh yeah, what'd you think? Oh, that was a dud. No, that's not going anywhere." Or somebody would say, "That's a really good book. Why don't we get that to the group team?" Because we have a lot of teams in our office. We have a partnership team, an attorney team, an attorney paralegal team, a paralegal team, an administrative team, a development team. We got 6 teams, but only 20 people. So people are working in different ways and they're facilitating different teams. So these are books that we've read that everybody gave a thumbs up when it cascaded through the organization, and we talked around issues of change, Who Moved My Cheese, The Secret of Teams, Working Together, Radical Candor, having really empathetic but direct conversations with people, Heart of Leadership, Happiness Advantage, kind of a what makes you happy, how does that work for you, and how does that cascade into the organization. These are just some of the readings we've done, but when one person reads it, the next person reads it, it goes to a team, it then goes to the whole group, and it then becomes a facilitation for the entire year in a retreat that the entire office goes to. Just a couple of weeks ago, we came back from Cabo, Mexico as a full office with spouses. We're 20 people. We don't make billions of dollars. We don't have a money-making machine, but we have culture and communications and commitment, And these are the things that matter most to folks, is that personal development and personal growth. They're reading things that are blowing their mind up, that's helping them improve. And that's what matters most, I think.
Yeah. And each of these books have all unique messages that can really help an organization, whether you're looking for someone who's mission driven, that would be Happiness Advantage, or you're looking to elevate communications, Radical Candor. You're looking for the whole thing, that would be Covey. But the easiest read, really, really fast, is Who Moved My Cheese? That'll take you an hour. And it's a fantastic story about embracing change within the office and finding people who are flexible and willing to change and grow with technology, with time. Having older employees dealing with younger employees and not just going, huh, millennials, because that's not effective. How do you deal with younger people? Read Who Moved My Cheese. It helps tremendously, and it's a really easy read.
Right on that. So with all this great wisdom and knowledge and experience, this didn't come like overnight. This comes as a learning process, continuing to improve relationships and continue to improve mission. It takes a while. It takes a lot of experience. You're going to have bumps in the road. So just a word of encouragement to, the 10,000 hour rule. It takes a lot of time. It's going to take many years to perfect and continue to perfect what you're trying to do. The practice of law is the reason it's called a practice, because you keep doing it. You never get it perfect. There's always something more to be improved upon. And this is a pretty cool story that Malcolm Gladwell laid out in terms of what success looks like and the time commitment that's needed to it. We're about running out of time, so I want to go to maybe one or two more slides. These are some of our accolades that our peers have bestowed upon us for the work that we've done in the community. Just recently, because of my love or passion of work that I do representing people with very severe brain injuries, I finally put a book together to help guide the survivors and their families in their journey of recovery. I'm proud to say it just came out about 5 weeks ago, and the reviews are starting to pop up on Amazon. And I'm like, oh my God, I have a review. And they're pretty positive.
Oh,
so,
there it is.
Well, there's more reviews. They keep floating in. Anyway, I'm just kind of very proud of that. And I want to say to the world, I did it. Yay. That's it. We're ready for questions. We'd love to have dialogue, or however our host and co-host want to manage it from here.
Yeah, so we are right at time, but we did have a question from the audience. So I'll invite Joanna and Brooke to come back on and see if we can do a lightning round answer to Bruce's question. Can you say something about generational differences in the workplace relative to your philosophies and just best practices around staff retention? So you did mention Who Moved My Cheese. It sounds like there might be some knowledge nuggets in there, but anything else? Lightning round?
I'll go first, and just, I can't stress enough how important it is to be flexible and really just be able to move with the times and agile. And you can still insist on your high standards and greatness, but know that time marches on. And so flexibility is really important.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, I would just say, ask. Everyone's different, regardless of whether it's a generational divide or cultural divide or gender divide. Ask the question. Ask what someone needs, right? Because people can be from the same generation and still need completely different things. So just, I don't know, ask.
Who Moved My Cheese would be a great one to have a discussion with folks within the organization, because there are two mice or rats that one is very flexible, looking for some new cheese, and the other one saying, no, I'm going to stay where I am. The cheese has been good here. It's not showing up, but I'm going to do what I've always done because it works. And then you lead to this discussion in the office like, hey, what mouse do you identify with and why? And you got people going, oh, I'm the one that doesn't want to move. I don't want to change. I don't like change. But then they get to the realization like, if I don't change, I'm going to die because there's going to be no more cheese. And so I think I got to start moving. And so it's another way of telling a story. People get a message. It's a lot different than trying to say, you need to change the way you do things. Well, that don't work. Just imagine your parents telling you at a certain age when you're a teenager, you need to do this, and you roll your eyes. Well, that's kind of what's happening in the generational world.
Thank you. Well, we don't have any other audience questions. So I will thank all of you. Thanks so much, Joanna, Brooke, Melissa, and Richard for sharing with us today. For everybody in attendance, I did record this, so we'll put it on the event page later if you want to go back, maybe write down some of those book titles or look at Joanna and Brooke's great informational slides. One last thank you to our sponsors, Business Health Trust and Reach King County, and our small business champions. So thanks all for coming, and hope to see you at another chamber event soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.